Okay, this is that moment of truth where I wait for it to happen. All right, it looks like we got looks like we're on the YouTube, but let's wait and see it. All right, YouTube, you're up. What's up? Good morning, YouTube. Guys, we'll let people load in here. I got to see it. You know how that goes. It looks like we got Rockfin too. Okay, we got Rockfin as well. We are up and at 'em. Let me switch my knee out here. I did that goofy thing with my knee where it's not where it's supposed to be. What's up, everybody? Good afternoon, good evening, good morning to everyone in the future. Please solve climate change. Send us the solution. And to everyone listening to the podcast later, hope you are having a wonderful day, running errands, whatever it is you're doing. And leave a 5-star review, would you? That'd be awesome. Podcast listeners, please do leave a 5-star review. Welcome to Get Your News On with Ron, the headlines show of the week, where we go through some of the headlines of the week and the stuff we've been covering. And boy, there is a lot to talk about today. And we got not one, but two guests helping me through it. Chris Moen's here. We're going to bring him in. And we're also going to have a friend of the show. You know him. He's been on before. Mike Elk of Payday Report is going to talk some of the election results in Pennsylvania. Let's bring you both on. What's up, fellas? How are we?
Good, yourself?
Good. There you go, Mike.
Howdy.
All right, you're in the middle now. There you go. We got you.
Nice.
It's a weird. We got like a little. Yeah, this is.
Right.
It's always weird with more than one,
three.
but it works. So, Mike, let's go to you first. I know that you and I were texting some on election night in Pennsylvania, and you were kind of involved with some of the happenings there. So, what are some of the highlights you want to give us?
Yeah, I think the big story is, look, APEC and its corporate allies spent over $4 million, I think $4.5 million against Summer Lee, a socialist state representative, a black state representative, went to high school with me at Woody High. She was my old track teammate.
Yeah.
And they lost.
Yeah, I mean, well, and I wanted the other reason that I thought this was so interesting is that, you and I and Krish, we live 3,000 some miles apart. But the same thing that happened in Summer Lee's district happened in my district where I live in the Los Angeles area, where you had this kind of lefty person gaining some steam and building this thing, and people are recognizing it. And then all of a sudden, oh, we got to redistrict this. The same thing that happened to Summer Lee happened in my district to a candidate named Fatima Iqbal Zubair, who I'm supporting. Same thing happened to her, where they just redistricted her because she built a lot of she generated a lot of grassroots support. She almost won. She's running again. Then all of a sudden they redistricted her. And she was on this show to tell her story. Fortunately, her and her husband were able to move into the district so that she could still do her thing. But it's like, it's amazing the gerrymandering that goes on and how deliberate and how dirty this stuff is. And, it's the entire establishment doing it. People make it out like only the Republicans do it. The Republicans definitely do it, but Democrats do it too. In this case, it's Democrats doing it to lefties.
Yeah, so to give a little backdrop here about who Summer Lee is. She's a state representative for the area where Ron and I both grew up. She's our parents' state representative, actually, right now.
She is, yeah.
And she was first elected 4 years ago, running against a 20-year incumbent that she beat 2-1.
No, what was her exact position there that she won?
She was state representative.
Okay.
Yeah, so she was elected to be state representative 4 years ago in a district. State representative districts in Pennsylvania are about 50,000 voters, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a good ground game, that's winnable, right? With a good ground game.
Mm-hmm.
And she beat a 20-year incumbent Paul Costa, who's from a famous old school Italian political family, 2-1. And this had been after she'd worked as a political organizer in that area, in the Woodland Hills area where I went to high school, the whole school district there. When she had worked there as an organizer, she had helped flip the school board. And then basically she had done all this stuff. And then she had flipped the school board. And then she once she got elected, she founded a group called Unite, which was a PAC and had staff, and they did training. And they went around the county and they started recruiting people. First, they recruited Bethany Halem, and she ran against John DeFazio, who was the president of the county council here, and beat him. He was also the director of the Steelworkers in Pennsylvania, and once a very famous pro wrestler. Jumpin' Johnny, they called him.
All right.
May he rest in peace. He died a few months after he got beat. But yeah, so they beat Jumpin' Johnny, and then they came in and they beat two more state reps, one in the South Side, one on the North Side here in Pittsburgh, and then they beat a bunch of judges. Actually, the judge in the magistrate in Connor Lamb's district is a socialist who was elected by this, which is kind of funny. And so, they helped flip the Court of Common Pleas, and then they went for the big prize, which is that she backed a black state rep named Ed Gainey to run against the mayor of Pittsburgh, Bill Peduto, who was a notoriously racist, notoriously corporate, a Dem. And they beat him, last election for the mayoral election. First time in Pittsburgh history an incumbent mayor has ever been beat. So the party establishment here really hated her. For leading these efforts to knock off so many people.
And so they redistricted her, but she beat it anyway, which is cool to see. I mean, it's cool to see.
So what happened? Let me explain it. Is when they drew the congressional lines, Hillary Clinton's former lawyer, was in charge of it.
Of course,
Mark Elias. Yeah, of course. Yeah. So
wow, it's like you can't write this stuff.
It was approved by the Supreme Court, which is full of Democrats that were elected with all kind of backing, because the Supreme Court here in PA is elected. And so what they did was Swissville, where Summer's from, was the only precinct in all of Pennsylvania that was split in two by the map. They carved Summer's house out by 100 yards, and then they carved another house.
Jesus, it's just so.
And then,
look. This is why we don't cover electoralism that much on this show. I cover it a little bit, but this is where it's just so in your freaking face.
Yeah,
and people try to pretend like it's not. It's so deliberate. The same thing happened 3,000 miles away in San Pedro, California, where I live, and it's going on. And I love the way you explain this stuff, Mike, because you sound like a guy from a different era, and it's so lovely. No, you're just like, and then they beat Jumpin' Johnny, but Slammin' Steve, he had this yard sign. Let me tell you.
Well, let's put one thing clear: is they carved out Swissville, they carved out Braddock Hills, they carved out Forest Hills, where Ron and I are from. Mm-hmm. And Forest Hills, surprisingly, which was always kind of I don't know how to describe it, like a white inner city suburb almost.
Yeah, it's a commuter suburb, and it kind of goes in cycles. It's a very family-oriented place, so it's and I'm seeing
the kind of place where if you live there, you would send your kids to school with black kids. So
sure,
parents tended to be more progressive.
Yeah, totally, and it's definitely a working class neighborhood. It's definitely like just a middle class neighborhood, and so you kind of see the cycles. When I moved there, I was the only kid at first, and then a bunch of other families moved in, and then we all grew up. And it's now it is one of those neighborhoods where there is still a little bit of a semblance of middle class. So now it's I'm seeing my mom becoming the nice older lady who gives kids extra candy, and so you know what I mean, because I remember I was oh my god, my mom's Peggy now, because there was this sweet old lady named Peggy who would always give me candy as a kid, who lived down the street. Now my mom is that person for all the neighborhood kids.
There's all these Google people there now.
A little bit, yeah. Some of them are working in tech and stuff like that. So anyway,
so a lot of young families, but regardless, it's sort of funny to think they carved it out, because when Summer was elected for state rep, it went for her each time by 70%.
Yeah.
And part of that, people would say, why is Forest Hills the socialist hotbed? And I would say Vinnie pies.
Yeah. The pizza makes people.
Yeah, I was saving that one up.
It's such a big pizza that you can share it. So it's it makes people socialist.
Yeah, exactly. It's so big, and it's non-traditional. But
They do make a mean pizza. My favorite.
she won by 800 votes. But if you include where you and I grew up, which was in her state rep district, they cut half of her state rep district out. This would have been a 4 or 5 point victory.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just
So,
crazy,
I mean,
man.
they threw $4.5 million at her. They threw the gerrymandering at her. They threw these racist attack ads. And the ads inferred that she was a Trump supporter. No.
Wow. That's
No. And there was some reporting. There was Daniel Merritt's, other people, Huffington Post. They went out and talked to voters who thought that she had supported Trump because she had made some critical statements about Biden during the primary.
oh my God. So that that
Yeah,
is
there
quite
were
the pretzel logic. Quite the pretzel logic.
Yeah, there were a lot of folks there that really thought, that were low information voters that thought, like one guy was reported saying, he went into the booth and he saw that she was on the Democrat line and he Googled her and then decided to support her.
Good for that guy. Good for that guy.
Yeah.
It's like, wait a second.
Yeah, and so there were a lot of instances of this. I mean, there was a young black activist who was talking about how he had to explain to like his 11-year-old son that Summer Lee wasn't a Republican.
Wow.
This is a black woman. And on top of, the redistricting, the money, the local Pittsburgh media has to be one of the worst in the country. We are the largest city in America that had 2 newspapers that endorsed Trump.
Mm-hmm.
There was a study once done by the Columbia Journalism Review that 90% of the time when black men are portrayed in the news in Pittsburgh, they're either catching a football or stealing a TV.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean the media. Well, they have the Tribune Review, which is like, I mean, that's basically just Fox News, and then the Post Gazette has gotten more and more conservative. But yeah, well, I mean, it's very interesting to see, and I'm glad she won, and I'd imagine she'll probably take the general. Who knows? I mean, nothing can't ever take anything for granted. But
it's an 18-point district. But I mean, to get back to the media. The media refused to ever print that her opponent was a union buster.
Right. Yeah. Well, you uncovered that. I mean, her opponent was a union buster.
They didn't even bring up that there were mailers about it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
These folks were so lazy and so terrible that they never even printed that. Mm-hmm. And then I did a list of all the times that Steve Irwin made racist comments that Summer responded that they didn't print her response calling him racist. There were like 3 separate occasions that I found where she made comments on Twitter or something like that saying, he's engaged in dog whistle politics. He's engaged in racism here, blah, blah, blah. And so she ran against redistricting, money, dirty media, and she beat them all. Yeah. And I got to tell you, the election night party was pretty lit. No, it really was, because the way the votes were counted early in the night, she was down like 6-7 points. And then around 11, she started to tie it up. And then around 12:30, after people had been drinking free booze for 4 hours.
Oh, yeah. Jumpin' Jimmy was doing shots off the dashboard, and Vanishing Vince, he did an Irish goodbye. But, I saw him the next day.
Totally. It was like a tailgate party, And so, and so I think they got into this a situation where I really think, and I was talking with Dave Weigel at the Washington Post, my friend. If you look at the other progressive challengers across the country, I think what was unique about Summer versus other people running is that she had a real machine behind her. And people
she built a big grassroots thing.
They had beat all these local people. They had beat the mayor. And these people felt confident they could beat him. And so, winning by 800 votes, I know so many people that are like, yeah, I knocked on 200-300 doors for Summer. I mean, I helped get that done.
Yeah. And by the way, a side note, you might be the only person in America who is friends with both myself and Dave Weigel. We
Well, why is that?
No, we have a you could look it up. It's not, but yeah, like we've butted heads before. There's no hard feelings on my end. I can't speak for him.
Well, I mean, you're both Italian Americans. I mean, hot-headed Dagos get together.
Maybe that's what happened. Maybe that's what it was. I don't know. But dude, yeah. So that's awesome that she won. I wish her continued success, and thank you for everything that you're doing. And please let everyone know where to follow you and where to follow Payday Report.
people can go to paydayreport.com. They can donate there, etc. And one last thing about Italian Americans before we leave. Ray Liotta just died.
Oh, okay.
And I just hope everybody, everybody's talking about Goodfellas and all these other movies. But the best movie I think he made, one of the best, was Karina.
I've not seen it.
I don't think I've seen that one.
It was on like TBS a million times in the 90s. It was about like a Jewish widower who's a jingle writer for ad companies. So Ray Liotta is playing the piano, and his wife dies, and he hires Whoopi Goldberg as the babysitter. And Whoopi Goldberg's like a classically trained pianist, and they like fall in love in the 50s.
All right.
So,
all right, buddy.
All right.
All right, dude. Sounds good. Well, everyone check out Payday Report. And just so everyone knows, they do a lot of labor news. They cover strikes. They cover protests. They do amazing work. And Mike is the basically the CEO of that. Like it's your outlet. You're running it.
I don't know about that.
Well, whatever. Like creator, you're the
guy.
Overseer. You're the guy.
He's the guy. You're the guy.
In my house one day, I don't know how to get rid of it.
All right. All right, buddy. Be well. Continued success, and thanks for popping in. Be well. Peace. All right, there we go. That was Mike Elk with election news and some movie references. There's more than that on his on Payday Report.
It is a great site. I've definitely used it.
It's a fantastic
great source, especially for labor news. That was the thing is like when the pandemic started, I dug heavy into labor history and a lot of current trends and keeping up with current news. Payday Report was like on it before pretty much anybody else. So yeah, I highly recommend checking them out.
He covers strikes all over the country. Like
everywhere.
He was covering the strikes, like the Wildcat strikes in like Wyoming and stuff like that. So it's like, yeah, it is one of the best sites in the country for strike news. And also a little bit of electoral news if you want to know what Jumpin' Jiminy is up to. And Mike's got you. He's holding down that fort. But no, it is one of the best labor publications out there. And yeah, Mike comes in from time to time to just check in about various things. Krish, what's up, buddy?
Hello. Good to see you.
Good to see you, man. So we got to talk about Texas. We got to go there first. And then we're going to talk about some kind of more uplifting things. Detroit is building their own internet. That's pretty interesting. And we got a stripper strike update. We've been covering the stripper strike on this show. We got an update about the stripper strike in North Hollywood. But first, we'll go to Texas first. And man,
there was one a couple weeks ago too, right? There was,
it's constant. Mass shooting
in Buffalo, and
it's
now
constant.
it's like it's back.
It's back. It's been back. It kind of only left for a little bit because of the pandemic. And I mean, I felt this. I've been feeling this way for a couple years now. You could basically just replay a different episode where a shooting happened because it's just the same story over and over again. And it is the same cycle over and over again where, there's some grandstanding, there's some gestural things from both sides, like the NRA, like right wing whatever side, and then from the we're gonna say we're gonna do something, but we're not going to that side. Some nice tweets.
The Beto O'Rourke thing. The second I saw it, I was like, "This is a stunt. This is grandstanding. You're not actually gonna do anything. You're not actually gonna fucking put out meaningful legislation. You're not actually gonna do anything to change gun culture in this country.
Yeah,
you're not doing any of that."
Right, and technically
grandstand against him, like
totally, and I mean technically he can't do anything right now because he's running for governor. But it's like
100%.
But it's like, yeah, dude, this guy because I tweeted about that, and some of like the Beto fans gave me heat for it. It's like, dude, look at what the guy's done so far. Look at his track record so far. He's flip-flopped and he's basically head faked on every progressive issue. He was part of the clown car that was meant to sabotage Bernie. That's his track record. So you think he's sincere now? What makes you think he's sincere? Like, they're like, well, how do you know? How do you know it was a stunt? I was like, well, I'm not inside the guy's head, but I'm basing it off of all of his past actions and the fact that he has been reliable on absolutely nothing, and he's been nothing but a corporate shill on everything. So what makes you so sure it's not? Based on his behavior, what makes you so sure it's not?
He's running against him too, and he did this during an election season for him. Like, but he does a pretty sweet kickflip though.
Does he? I mean, I thought
know.
like he lost
Yeah,
that.
I know that
I think Andrew Yang could actually skateboard a little bit better than him. That'd be. I think he lost that. He's just like, well, I can skateboard, and then like Andrew Yang was like, I could actually do that.
I actually built a half pipe.
He was on a skateboard.
Half pipe for everybody.
He's on the skateboard throwing out fake $1,000 bills. Like, you'll get one of these every month, but it'll be real. Watch this ollie.
Well, now he's just giving out tech decks, if you remember.
Oh, is that his
thing? Yeah, no, I don't think he's actually doing that. But
so
it's just there's nothing being done, and now they're going on recess, aren't they? Like they're going on summer vacation.
Well, here's the thing.
Their whatever homes.
In typical American fashion, it is either you favor doing fuck all, where you're like, well, we can't possibly do anything about this. We're pretty much the only country that has the problem like this. We can't possibly do anything about it. Or if you say, hey, we should do something, that means we're going to take everybody's gun. We're just going to drive around and take everybody's gun. There can't possibly be any type of policy. There can't possibly be any solutions that are actually better policies that will help this stuff. It's either you have this crazy vision that someone's driving around. I mean, there were people who honestly believe Obama was going to get on an Amtrak and confiscate their guns. They honestly thought that was going to happen. So you're either that, which, by the way, is not a sensible solution, would never work, and would cause a fucking civil war, which is a bad idea. Or we can't possibly do anything. And there's nothing else. There's nothing. It's not like there aren't other countries all over the world where there are still guns. People could still have a gun, but they don't have these fucking problems. And why don't they have these fucking problems? Well, for a number of reasons. They have ammunition regulation. You have to register your guns. There's certain types of guns that you can't get. These guns that are just meant for mass murdering, you can't fucking get those kinds. You don't need a gun like that to hunt for food or to protect yourself in an emergency.
If the government comes in, it's like, yeah, well, the government has drones and an F-35 and a fucking tank.
Exactly.
Like, what are you going to do with an AR-15 when there's a drone you can't see that can fire fucking round after round into your house? Like, if the government wanted to do that, by the way, they already fucking do that. They do that around the globe. They have really excellent ways of murdering the shit out of people. Like, yeah, and then they do that here with the cops.
Preemptively use the military here. I mean, yeah, that's the thing when people are just like, well, in case there's ever an armed revolution. I'm like, who do you think would win that?
In 1894, they did it. $80 million of damage to Chicago was caused by the United States military against a strike, against people unionizing for the railroads. Like, this has been happening forever. So it's just... all of these arguments from these people that claim that you can't do anything because if you do anything, it's always going to land at they're going to come and take your guns away and then all your rights are gone. It's insane. Why not treat it like a driver's license? Why not, have educative courses where you have to come and you have to show that you can fire your weapon. You know how to store it safely. You know how to clean it properly. Like, it's a full-time responsibility.
And it's not like there's one solution out there. It's not like, oh, okay, we're going to have registration. We should have that. Abso-freaking-lutely. But that should be one of many things. We should have a voluntary buyback. That worked pretty well in Australia. Have a voluntary buyback. Have registration. Have, required classes. And you have to re-register it like a car. And, to the gun owners out there, I get it. That's a pain in the butt. I get it. That's a pain in the ass. But you know what? If it prevents one freaking school shooting, which it would do that and way more, isn't that worth it? I mean, isn't that worth it?
Yeah.
How is that not worth it? For you to be inconvenienced for a freaking day?
Yeah, right. Like, you do it for your car.
You do it for your car.
How would this be? But that's the thing is gun ownership in this country. And I know a lot of people that own guns, and I know a lot of people that are kind of all over the spectrum in terms of how they feel about gun ownership.
Right.
But most of them land on the spectrum of there needs to be something reasonable put into place, because gun ownership is serious. This is a serious thing. This is not Fast and the Furious or fucking Die Hard or any of those movies. This is a weapon, and it's a tool, and the only purpose for this tool is to kill people. That's it. It's a killing tool. It kills something. That's what it does, right? And like, I wrote this bit in 2017, and I hate to say this, but it's all still applicable today. None of it has changed, and my opinions on these things hasn't really changed. And I've been thinking about this a lot, and part of the reason why I think nothing ever really gets done, and the conversation stays at, you either have to arm everybody or you have to ban it and take it all away, and everything in between becomes null and void, is because, well, if you start making any sort of shift towards regulation, towards gun reform, you would essentially start changing the culture around it, which means less people would be afraid, less people would buy guns, less people would be racist, because you would start educating people. I mean, again, the gun issue, much like literally every other issue, even if you take the smallest step towards progress, even if you take the smallest step towards reform and making things right, and thinking about human rights and all that sort of stuff, you create this cascade of change. And because all of these issues are interlinked, it starts changing more and more, and then it'll start changing faster and faster. And these politicians that are getting a shit ton of money from the NRA, that are profiting off of thoughts and prayers, well, what do they have left? They're going to be ancillary, because the entire country is already kind of realizing that these people are useless, and are getting paid millions and millions of dollars to do nothing. But I mean, once everybody kind of realizes that, then there's no point in supporting something like this, and it collapses the whole thing. It all literally becomes a house of cards, right? Like that's all they're trying to make people to not realize, is that it's a house of cards. And yeah, it's the same thing with abortion rights. People are out in the streets, and it's going to come down to doctors. It's going to come down to clinics like performing these things and saying, no, we're not going to stand by this ruling. And I think it's going to have to come down to gun owners in this country, that are going to have to say, no, we're not going to stand by people not doing anything about this, politicians not doing anything about this.
Well,
there's been reasonable pieces of legislation that have been introduced and largely ignored by Congress. Time and time again. There was one last year that, there was some stuff that I didn't particularly like, some privacy issue stuff that kind of came into play, but largely in terms of gun ownership, it dictated a lot of the stuff that we're talking about now, is to treat it like it's a car. You have to prove that you have to, you can be safe with it, so on and so forth. Like, yeah, those laws already should be in place.
Right.
There's no reason why those laws shouldn't be in place. And the Second Amendment, I'm sorry, but that fucking amendment's a mess. It's a mess of an amendment. And again, if we
and it was written in the context of like, do you think they were envisioning this weaponry where like you could, I mean, it's like, even when people point to stuff that Marx said about weapons and stuff, it's like, yeah, but he was writing at a time like, and by the way, in the Second Amendment, there's the well-regulated militia part.
Yeah.
There's that part that everyone seems to forget, that well-regulated part.
The NRA conveniently leaves that part out.
Yeah. and it's like, you have to apply it to today's standards, where it's like, I don't think they meant that kids should be able to get these automatic weapons that could shoot all these things at a time and just kill people en masse. I don't think that that's what they had in mind here. I'm pretty sure that's not. I mean, it's so ridiculous. And, you're right, because yes, in this country, gun ownership is a very broad thing. And when people try to reduce it, like, oh, it's just a bunch of, it's just a bunch of people who are just obsessed with their guns and they're like, bang, bang. It's more complicated than that. And the reason it is because we have so many freaking guns in this country. I mean, it's like, what, 120 guns per 100 people or something like that. Like,
it's more guns than people, for sure.
It's insane. And to the point where it's like, hey, there are some people in this country who are just randomly gun owners through no actions of their own. I can give you one example. Boom, right here. I'm a gun owner because my grandfather left me a gun in his freaking will. So I'm a gun owner by definition. There is a gun that is like it lives in my parents' attic. I've never even seen it, but I'm a gun owner, and I actually love to. I mean, sometimes when I'm debating guns, I do love to bring that up. They're like, "Well, if you were a gun owner, you were like, I am a gun owner." By definition, true. We don't need to go into any. I mean, I am like. That's just how you can get a gun like it's a hand-me-down sweater you didn't know you had. I mean, that's just the United States.
I had my car, one of my cars,
and there was a free gun in it. There was a free gun in your car.
There was a free gun in it, and they were like, "This just came with the car." We didn't know. They were like, "You buy a Nissan, you get 2 free handguns for free." It's a giveaway. It's a sweepstakes. But the process of transferring ownership of a car I mean, the documentation, it took us 3 trips because we forgot paperwork, and then the second time we didn't know we had a document we needed to fill out and print out and bring all this other shit. Like, it took us 3 trips and an entire Saturday to transfer ownership and registration of this car. And then it's just like, oh yeah, I got my gun in a will. What?
Yeah, I mean, it's just so you have people and groups of people that have had to respond to that. I mean, and you have like I can think of an example. A native, a friend of mine who's Native American. He was telling me, he's like, dude, a lot of people in my community, we are very, very serious about gun rights, and we gotta be because like he lives on a reservation, and he's like, dude, damn well we can't quote call the cops. That's not something we can do. And when people come looking for trouble where we're at, they are looking for trouble. So we need to have something to defend ourselves. We need to have guns to defend ourselves with the world that we're living in. I get it, dude. I mean, I get. I mean, it's like there's not even a register of Native American women who go missing in this country. There's no one even keeps track of it. Like that's just an atrocity in our society that nobody even freaking talks about. And it's like so I get the complexity of this. But the idea that nothing can be done is so freaking absurd.
Mandatory lessons. Simple. I mean, simple stuff like that. Like, it's like I take martial arts. I can't call myself a martial artist if I don't go into class and learn. And I can't really know what to do if I get into a self-defense situation if I don't practice my martial arts.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's how it works. I mean, it's the same thing with a gun, right? Half these people out there want to be that good guy with a gun. Well, how the hell are you going to do that if you're not at the range once a week, spending time shooting and learning about your weapon and cleaning it? Half the time you don't do that. Most of these people just have the gun in their house because that's not regulated. It's not necessary for you to do that. A gun in America is not a tool for protection. It's a tool for feeling tough and masculine. Let's be honest about what it really does. That's the culture that needs to change about it.
Mm-hmm.
This is a serious decision, and most people are treating it like they're going to the flea market. Like,
I mean, it's like they'll have their gun just chilling on their breakfast table and stuff.
Yeah,
and it's
what are you doing?
I mean, I grew up in Pennsylvania. Like I've been around this stuff and whatnot because I have some family members who, especially, they live in more rural areas. They hunt deer and people collect guns like it's something for fun. And then again, you have other people that like have to respond to this stuff and they realize they're living in such a weapons obsessed society. And that's the other side of this too. Is like, yes, any policy would not be fair. It would not be equitable, and it would discriminate against, the least powerful among us. It would discriminate against brown people, people of color. Like it would do all those things, and that freaking sucks. But the idea of doing nothing, the idea of just saying, "Well, we can't do anything," it's like, how is that an option? How is that an option at this point? And you do have to recognize that they ain't going to do anything at the top. It's just not going to happen. I mean, the only chance is through ballot initiatives. And even that is such a long freaking shot because who's going to write that policy at the end of the day? The NRA is going to buy all that shit up. They're going to buy all that shit up. So it's like, where do you turn?
So it's going to come down to organizations like I have a good friend of mine, and I've been meaning to try to take him up on his offer He's in the SRA, and he
The
was like
Socialist Rifle
the
Association.
Socialist Rifle Association, which basically, from what I've looked into and some of the folks in the SRA in town that I've talked to, they stand for what the NRA used to stand for. Like, they're offering lessons on how to shoot your weapon, on how to clean it, proper gun safety, storage, stuff like that. Like, that's what they emphasize. That's what the NRA should be emphasized. That's what the NRA used to emphasize, before they were this corporate behemoth. But it should be.
I always
I
thought
mean,
they were always a terrible organization, but I don't know. Maybe I
no,
don't know all their history.
initially, from what I researched, they were like, when you join, like, you had to be part of the NRA to join a gun club,
Okay,
because the
interesting.
NRA kind of helped these places, like, teach people how to shoot weapons and stuff. Like, they helped them kind of put that infrastructure together. From what I read, that's kind of what they used to do. And then I think it was like the 60s or 70s when things took a drastic shift. And I mean, they're a for-profit organization, is essentially what they are. They control policy, and it wasn't until 2002 that there was any, like, Supreme Court case. The Supreme Court would deny cases about gun reform and stuff because they didn't want to deal with the NRA. But it's just that's not. We don't talk about the importance of owning a gun in this country, like what that actually means, right? But the SRA does. So I think you're right. It's not going to come down to legislation, but I think it's going to come down to gun rights activists. Like, I don't see a whole lot of those kinds of folks talking about this kind of an issue, and maybe this is the time that we will. I mean, the last 3-4 years, I've seen things that I don't think I would have ever seen, like this wave of unionization. Like, Starbucks is unionizing,
Yeah.
Amazon is unionizing. So maybe there's going to be a bunch of gun rights activists that are going to take grassroots efforts to do that, to knock on people's doors and say, hey, are you a gun owner, and would you like to join the SRA
We're gun
and
owners
learn
for
about
common
this?
sense policies. Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, dude,
yeah,
totally. And that's the other thing. Like people, they overlook that stuff too when they just. It's like, look, there's plenty of gun owners out there. I'm not saying there aren't terrible gun owners out there. Of
absolutely.
course there are, but it's like there's gun owners out there that despise the NRA and justify. I mean, I despise the NRA. Technically, I'm a gun owner, so you know what? Let's be totally correct here. I'm among the gun owners that despise the NRA. It is kind of, maybe someday I'll like just have it in my possession. Like maybe I'll someday find it in my parents' attic and bring it to California and be like, I have the gun. Is it loaded? No. Will you ever load it? Probably not. But it's there. And I teach my cat gun safety. Did you ever see that book where it's like explaining gun safety to your cat? And it's like this. It's a funny book, but
That's my
anyway,
concern. I can't own a gun because I have a cat.
yeah. I mean, totally, man. I don't.
That's,
She'll hide it from me, and then I'll be like, "Where's my gun? I have to
yeah.
open this can," and then I can't. I mean,
I'm trying to impress people, Miles. You can't just hide my gun from me, bro.
So it's like, to put a period on it. Like I'm not trying to be like a cynic when I say nothing's gonna, but it's like there's so many reasons why they're not gonna do anything, and why there's not gonna be any type of federal legislation, and why it's just the cycle that happens over and over again of just a little bit of grandstanding, a little bit of pontificating, some tweets from the Ministry of Appeasement, a few gestural stunts. This time it was Beto O'Rourke. It'll be someone else next time. Like Beto's just part. Like I said, like get over it. If you're convinced Beto's the real thing, go out and canvas for him. Knock yourself out. Who gives a shit? Abbott's a total monster. I don't disagree with you on that. Of course, he's the worst. But like
Beto the savior, no.
Exactly. Like, does that mean you have to pretend that corporate ass clown is something he isn't? No, it doesn't mean that. So it's like the long fixed. I mean, recognize what's really going on first, because first everyone has to recognize that this is all bullshit and that nothing is going to change unless people are really just too freaking big and loud to ignore. And it is going to take a real social movement, and I think it's going to be among among the things in a general strike is a common sense weapons policy.
Mhm.
So it's like, yeah, like this isn't like people being cynical. This is people being honest and being real. And it is far more cynical to have these grand delusions about what's actually going on when for 20 plus years, this shit has been happening. And they've been going after kids in elementary schools and nothing has changed. Now, they're not even canceling a freaking NRA, like the little meetup that they're having. They're not even, and by the way, the same thing happened with Columbine. The same thing, they were like, maybe they should cancel that. And of course they said, no, our cold dead hands. Same thing's happening. And then people are patting Don McLean on the back for canceling his appearance. Why was he appearing there at the first place? I guess maybe the guy whose only hit was about people who were better musicians and better songwriters than him dying in a plane crash. That's the only hit he ever pulled off. I guess maybe it might make sense why he might be into violence, since the only hit he managed was about a plane crash from people who made music that was actually lasting and not just sentimental bullshit. Fuck that guy. But anyway, sometimes when I bring music into it, I just
that's what gets you going.
Yeah, that's what does it.
Disrespect of the music.
So anyway, I think recognizing that is kind of important. That's just recognizing that, because it's like until you realize that it's just a cycle and we're just hamsters on a freaking wheel, nothing's gonna change.
Like I wrote a bit about this in 2017. I should have different views on the subject, but I don't. It's the same thing. It's the same
thing.
And it's like I can release that again and again every single time there's gun violence in this country. It's the same thing. It's just the same cycle keeping on going and going and going.
All right, so let's move on to something a little bit more uplifting. Detroit. I love Detroit. I have a lot of love for that city, and they are a true lesson in. I mean, obviously they have struggled a lot over the past 50, 60 years. I mean, they are a prime example on how capitalism is completely unsustainable, because they just, I mean, it's just corporate predators just destroyed Detroit, really. And I mean, it used to have one of the best music scenes in the freaking world. It used to be, I mean, and they just gutted it. And this was over the course of like from the 60s to current day. But the people in Detroit are very very known for just taking things into their own hands, because they have to. And they really are a strong testament to the power of community, to the power of going local. And through all the brutality of our system, there are some beautiful things to really take hold of. And one of the things that city's doing is they're building their own internet now. And as a show that is a municipal broadband oriented show, this is intriguing.
Up until last year, about 40% of the residents had no internet access at all. And the city of Detroit was consistently at the top of the National Digital Inclusion Alliance's list of worst connected cities. Because of our work and because of the work of other organizations like ours, that we've dropped to, I think, number 13 or 14 on the list. I'm Janice Gates. I'm the director of the Equitable Internet Initiative, which is a program of the Detroit Community Technology Project. EII is a program where we train Detroit residents, specifically those residents who have historically been marginalized, particularly Black and Brown people. We teach them to build internet infrastructure in Detroit. We have donated connections from our partners at 123net. They have equipment on the top of the Renaissance Center, which is the tallest building in the city. And from there, a gigabit connection is sent wirelessly to our 3 anchor org partners. So in Southwest Detroit, the Island View neighborhood, and then the North End and Highland Park. And from there, the stewards set up a distribution network to the residential homes.
It's a new idea. Like when you think of internet, you don't think of people in your neighborhood building it. You think of somebody in a hard helmet and a vest and like a bucket truck, not necessarily our van, and like at a community center. And it's been interesting to challenge like people's idea about like who's going to come into the internet.
My name is Nigel Valdez. We are in Grace in Action in Southwest Detroit. We have a mix of Latino families, Black families, Hungarian families, different immigrant families here.
And so you can see right here, these are our 3 routers that get people access to their homes. And so any home pretty much we can see from this rooftop is able to get access to our internet. I mean, really everything is moving online and it's happening really fast. And so I would hate to see like my neighbors being like left behind in this. Also, like with access comes resources. And if the only way people are able to get those resources is to have internet, then like you're just blocking them from those resources.
That's inspiring stuff, man. That is so cool. And to people watching the pod or listening, excuse me, to the podcast later, like the video that you weren't able to see there is the, like the satellites that they have on top of there and the routers and stuff that they're just putting up themselves. This is like the equivalent. The one thing this kind of reminded me of is like low power FM radio stations. They would just literally do a barn raising where they would just put up their own freaking antennas. This is sort of like that, but for the internet. And the difference is like you can really build high quality internet. I mean, a lot of those antennas, like it's just an LPFM signal, so it just goes like a mile or something. But this is like internet connection that you can build all over, like in different residencies and stuff like that, and get people connected. So, I mean, that organization is called Grace in Action, and this segment is by The Hill, which, last time I covered something that The Hill did in terms of digital rights, it was a segment that they did on net neutrality that was painfully just ridiculous misinformation on net neutrality. So it's cool to see The Hill doing something like this and covering something like this. I'll give a tip of the hat. So Grace in Action is that organization in Detroit. Check them out online to learn more about what they're doing. And I'm going to try to get someone from there on the show to see how this can happen in other places. This should be happening everywhere.
Yeah. Again, it's kind of the grassroots, movement, the spirit of mutual aid that really kind of exploded out of the pandemic. We saw so many mutual aids, and like when I saw this video, that's what I thought of. I was like, this is how you do mutual aid internet. That's just how it's got to be done. And I think it's really awesome. And it's one of those things where, one of the things with government sites and folks that have ever had to be on government assistance or any such thing always deal with like the website not being very good. Like it's from 1993 or whatever, and the reason why they say that is, well, a lot of our people are, a lot of people that they serve are don't have internet, they don't have computers, so we kind of have to keep it very basic and rudimentary and, do things by hand, hence why you see all this, delays in bureaucracy and all of that. But this gets rid of that excuse. You can't really continue to keep that excuse that like, oh, these government things have to take so long because we have to do everything by hand. No, these folks have internet now you don't have an excuse to better the website for renewing your food stamps, or updating your welfare profile, or your Medicare profile, or whatever it is. There is no more excuses, because people took the initiative to give a community a basic need that they need. And at this point in our culture, like, the internet is a basic need. This is something that we all depend on for everyday life and daily existence. So I'm very glad to see stuff like this happening, and I hope that this happens everywhere. I stand by the fact that, like, if the government's not going to provide it for you, then the community is going to have to take action and do something about it.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. I mean, with municipal broadband, it is something that you can do right in your own community. And it's not easy. I mean, hell, I've been tried in 2 different neighborhoods at this point. I tried in Pasadena when I lived there. I've tried here at San Pedro. I don't have a success story yet, but I'm trying. I'm doing what I can. I meet. I go to local, like the meetings for like the different neighborhood councils and stuff like that. I connect with people in my community, no pun intended. And I'm trying. And this is something that can really enhance your community. You're going to offer people better internet at a better price. And as we continue to be the global village that we are, this just enhances the lives of so many people, because the internet is clearly a utility. And by the way, it's also good for things like climate change and things like so it's like all of these things are connected. Also, we can tie it into some of the stuff that we're seeing with these shootings and stuff like that. If people have more resources and better social services at their disposal, which of course municipal broadband doesn't solve all those problems, but it's a heck of a start, you're going to see less violence. I mean, those two things go hand in hand. One of the reasons you see like way less mass shootings in other parts of the world is because they have better social services than we do. You know, and this isn't one of those like dog whistle, like it's not the guns, it's mental health. No, it's all the above. Okay, it's all the above. It's the guns, it's lack of social services, it's a little bit of everything. That's why there need to be extensive, thorough solutions, and not just throwing up your arms and going, well, meh.
I want to say two quick things before we get to the next story too. One of the shows that does a really great job, and I think we were talking about this a little bit, is Shameless. That's a great show that really does a great job about what poverty is really like. And
it was a fun ending, by the way. It was a fun ending.
That's part of the reason I'm going back and watching it, and it's really interesting to see how the
don't spoil it for anybody.
Oh yeah, I haven't seen the ending of it, but
you haven't?
No, yeah. So I'm starting.
All I'll say is I like it,
and I'm going to the end. I'm excited to see. I'm excited to see how they wrapped it up. But you know, that's the other thing too, is these other countries don't have the same problems as we do because poverty isn't as crazy. Like they talk about technological restrictions in the show and everything, and it's a major part of the show. Like Fiona can't get job opportunities because she doesn't know how to use a computer properly because she's never had to, because that's not part of her survival trait. So it's just one of those things, like once you get that obstacle out of the way, again, that kind of opens the community to do, you know, whatever it needs to do.
Yeah.
And thrive.
Absolutely, man. I mean, especially since like we are living in a world where there are more and more remote work opportunities. I know that's not everyone. Not every job is going to be possible for that setup, but more and more are. And it just opens so many windows of opportunities for people. And if you don't have internet that is good enough to handle a Zoom call and it's good enough, I mean, you're being wedged out before you got a shot. And so shout out to Detroit for doing this. This is freaking awesome. And here's something else that is freaking awesome. So let me cue up this other video and make sure it doesn't start before we need it to. But this is up. It did what I didn't want it to do. That's okay. So we've been covering the stripper strike in NoHo in North Hollywood. We covered that on the show, and some of the feedback I got was a little interesting. I'm sorry if you, not you, Krish, but you, the viewer, whoever is not able to get over their evangelical views of sex and the human body that has probably been drilled into you since birth. But, you know, you should work on that. You should work on that. You know, sex work is work, and strippers are doing a job just like everybody else. And, you know, some of the feedback I got, there were people who were just like, they're being exploited. They're totally being exploited. Ron, most people wouldn't be strippers if they didn't need the money. I was like, as opposed to other jobs, the person going to Walmart, they're just doing it for love of the game. The person working there for less than minimum wage, they're just doing it because they love it.
Rollbacks, Ron.
So anyway, you know, that's a small disclaimer here as we go into this story. But strippers in North Hollywood, their tips were being messed with. They were not. I mean, there was a number of grievances they had. They were not being. They did not feel very safe at work because there was no security for them really, and so they've gone on strike. And here's an update on what's been happening with that. This is the latest. We're gonna check out this video from More Perfect Union. They do amazing work.
Fuck you! Fuck this! This is our club! Stop stealing our shit!
Got a union tattoo. Strippers in Los Angeles are unionizing.
That's a great union tattoo.
The world is set up in this way that I am going to be exploited for my femme body. I want control over that. I want to exploit the system that seeks to exploit me. if this is what we're given, we need to turn that around and make it work for us. I'm going to unionize.
That's a really powerful freaking statement. First of all, by the way.
Yeah.
That is a really powerful way to put it. Where she's just like, hey, if we're going to live in this system where, you know, like I'm going to turn that around. I'm going to own that. All power to her. I mean,
I mean, a lot of people are doing that. That I think that's also what the labor movement was trying to do.
Totally. Well, and this is just this is part of the labor movement, just like anything else.
Yeah. So it's just it's a great resurgence of that of that old labor spirit. You know, it's great.
All right, let's watch some more of this.
Everyone's like, are you serious? Are you kidding me? Strippers organizing, they want a union. What's next? The world is ending. And it's like, no, we're just like you. We're just people trying to work in a exploitative capitalist society.
Strippers at Star Garden walked out in March after 2 workers were fired for speaking out about safety concerns.
I was fired for bringing up a safety concern about a customer. I saw red flags and I was concerned that things were accelerating in an alarming way that could lead to obsession. I saw red flags of like possessiveness.
When I brought up my concerns to the manager on duty that night, he mocked me to my face, telling me that I was going to be murdered by that customer.
Wow.
And how I was going to be murdered by him. Probably shot, as the security guard predicted.
What the fuck? Holy shit. What? Wow. Wow. Wow.
That was the most messed up part about the whole thing. It's just like, yeah, you're probably going to be killed, and here's how. Like, and that's what and management thought that was like an okay.
That's funny. That's hilarious.
Really cute about it.
Wow. All right, let's watch some more of this.
Told me basically that it was my fault, that I must be doing something to lead him on. This is not.
Oh my God. It's your fault.
How
you must have been. How did they set that up? I think it's your fault. You must have been leading him on. What were you wearing? Nothing. It's a strip club. Like, what the hell?
That's probably why. Maybe
that's probably why you were naked, huh? What the fuck? Wow.
That's kind of the point of the place.
Wow. That is unbelievable. I mean, well, sadly it is believable, but Jesus. All right, so it goes on to say this is not an isolated kind of occurrence.
An isolated kind of occurrence. This is like something that you deal with as a dancer. My real ask for them that night was just to make sure that all of the customers were kicked out at the end of the night so that they weren't lingering, watching us get into our cars, watching us leave and go home, watching us count our money, watching us interact with our boss, all of these things that should be kept private. Selena was fired after me.
I told management I didn't feel safe.
After Selena was fired, that's when they addressed us as a group and said, you're not allowed to go straight to security. If you have any safety issues, you have to go through the management.
That's awesome. Wow. That's amazing. So if you're a stripper and someone's being a frickin' like not acting the way they're supposed to, which that happens at strip clubs all the time, you fill out a form. I mean, it's like, what the hell? I mean, it should just be, and this is what we talked about the first time when we covered this. I mean, it should be, if you're at a strip club and someone's doing what they're not supposed to, you should just, I mean, security should just see it.
That should be security.
I mean, I remember like Savage Joy did this segment with me when we first covered it. And I was like, they should just say like a word and security should be there kicking that person out. And she goes, no, they shouldn't even need to say the words. Security should just see it. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. Like, God, meanwhile here, it's just like, yeah, you gotta fill out some paperwork. You gotta, you know, you gotta pass a lie detector test, and then we might look into this and make a joke about you getting killed. Like, what the hell
is that?
So now they're unionizing. So now it's just like they went on strike, and now they're unionizing, and hopefully this spreads all over the country. Hopefully there is a national strippers union.
I hope so too. I hope so too.
Is someone playing the drums at your house? What the hell is that?
Yeah, my roommate decided he's going to play the drums in the middle of this. So sorry about the drumming in the background, you guys.
All right.
That's happening at the most inconvenient time possible. Yeah, I would like to see that happen across the country too. And I think one of the things that really needs to be emphasized about this is common sense. Like there should be safety protocols in place for anybody at any workplace, regardless of what it is. That should be something that is guaranteed. Like, like this is just common sense. They're just asking for common sense. And it doesn't matter whether you have some evangelical perspective about sex work. Like, this is a real danger that these people have to deal with. And if you say, like, well, don't deal with sex work, are you going to tell the construction worker, well, don't do construction if the jackhammer hurts your hands too much? Like, no, that's right now, that's the only available technology. And what right do you have to tell people what work they can and can't do? And if there is some danger at all in that work, I don't know. It's just like all work have some kind of danger involved in them. It's a matter of knowing what that danger is and putting some safety precautions in place so that that danger doesn't have to be life-threatening.
Well, and this is another example of people are asking for things they shouldn't even have to ask for. And this is the way it was. People are asking for living wages. They're asking for reasonable time off. They're asking for safety. I mean, that's what started everything in Amazon. They were asking for safety procedures during a pandemic. That's all they were asking for. These strippers, they're asking for, hey, don't let the creeps just linger and follow us. And don't take our tips. Those are ours. Like, that's all they're asking for. And that's too much to ask. Holy shit. And anybody who goes into that establishment, shame on you for knowing that that's how they're treating people and going into that establishment. Stay home and jerk off. Holy shit. Like, that's, I mean, obviously you don't do that at a strip club, but you know what I mean? Like don't, wow. Just, I hope this leads to a national union, because clearly it's freaking necessary. Krish, where can people go to learn more about you?
You can go to my website at krishmohanhaha.com, KRISHMOHANHAHA.com. I haven't published a whole lot of stuff there because I'm still kind of taking a hiatus and shifting things creatively. So yeah, but I will be putting stuff up over the summer. So yeah, that's the place to follow me.
All right, buddy. Be well. Thanks for being here, and I will see you next time.
Yes, sir.
All right. Krish Mo, him. Go follow him, Krish Mo and Haha. Check out his website. Check out when he's coming to a city near you. I'm sure he'll be having some road dates soon. But road dates, I got him. Iceland. I can't wait to see you, Iceland. I'm going to the Reykjavik Fringe Festival. I'm going to be there June 28th and June 30th. Those are my shows. Those are in Reykjavik at Hurrah. You can get tickets now directly from my website. You can just go to my website. I have it all linked up there. So romplacone.com. You can get Fringe Festival tickets. I will see you there. And I can't wait to see you. I've never been to Iceland. It'll be my first time. I'm stoked. Also, got some tour dates with Graham Elwood, July 28th, Portland, Oregon, July 29th, Seattle, Washington, July 30th, Vancouver, British Columbia. Do not wait. Get your tickets now at romplacone.com. Romplacone.com. Get your tickets for Iceland and the Northwest. And shout out to Edwin. Edwin, thank you very much for the pair that's asking me how it's going. It's going good, Edwin. Good to see you. I hope you've been enjoying the music recommendations that I gave last time. And thank you so much for the pair. I appreciate it very, very much. And shout out to Indy Left. Good hanging out with you in New York. Hope all is well. So yeah, thank you for the super chat contribution, Edwin. You help keep this show on the air. And to all you, grab those tickets. And of course, if you want to support the show on the sustainability end, best way to do it, patreon.com/romplacone. For a give what you can level, you get all kinds of exclusive content, including most recently, remember how I told you guys I was making a mini pilot? It's finished. And I dropped it for patrons already. So if you're a patron, you can see my mini pilot right now for a give what you can level. I'll be dropping it for everybody soon, but patrons get a sneak peek. So if you want to check it out, let me know what you think. Patreon.com/romplacone. Thank you guys so much for being here. We'll be back next week. A new episode of Expatriate is going to happen soon. I know a lot of you guys have been following that new series. And in the meantime, you know the drill. Lucy, she says meow, and I say peace, love, and a general strike.